I'll tell you something I never admitted out loud. Families don't always break with noise. Sometimes they break in complete silence. My name is Lionel Hale, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet, responsible one in my family, the one who held everything together while pretending I didn't notice the cracks. I built my career on my own, paid my own bills, created a stable life without leaning on anyone. And yet, every achievement I reached seemed invisible the moment I stepped into my parents' house. My sister Marissa was the golden child, the sun everyone revolved around, while I existed in the corners, acknowledged when convenient, ignored when inconvenient. My parents rarely called unless they needed something handled, fixed, or paid for, and every time the phone rang, I knew it wasn't because they missed me. Living like that slowly taught me a painful truth. You can share a last name with people and still feel like an outsider. Little by little, I began to feel like a guest in my own family, and deep down, I knew something had been breaking long before the day everything finally snapped. I showed up to Marissa's wedding genuinely happy for her, telling myself that maybe for once, things would feel normal. But the moment I walked into the reception hall, I felt the air shift. I went to look for my seat, scanning the elegant seating chart framed in gold, and my stomach dropped. My name wasn't there. Not misspelled. Not moved. Completely missing. I stood there, frozen, while guests circled around me, laughing, finding their places. When I looked toward my family's table, they all avoided my eyes with the same rehearsed ease that comes from long practice. Marissa didn't even glance my way. At one point, the photographer called for a full family picture, and I actually stepped forward, thinking for a second they might wave me over. Instead, they closed the gap where I could have stood, smiling brightly as if I didn't exist. I swallowed the burn in my throat, nodded to myself, and slipped out of the hall so quietly no one even noticed I was gone. The humiliation wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was sharp, cold, and painfully silent, just like every other time they'd pushed me out without saying a word. The next morning, before I even got out of bed, my phone buzzed with a long group message from my family. For a moment, I let myself believe, stupidly, that it might be an apology for the wedding. But when I opened it, all I saw was my dad's blunt command: send $35,000 for Marissa's car repairs. Do it before the end of the week. No explanation. No greeting. No acknowledgement that they had erased me from an entire wedding day. And definitely no apology. A minute later, Marissa added her own message: just do it, Lina. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at their words, feeling something tighten and splinter inside me, something far older than this moment. They had cut me out of their celebration, then woke up the next day expecting me to pay for their mess, as if that was the only role I was ever meant to play. Their silence at the wedding hurt, but this demand? This was the moment something deep inside me finally cracked open. I finally forced myself to look at the wedding photos Marissa had posted: smiling guests, glowing lights, tables full of people I recognized. And then it hit me like a slow, cold wave. They had erased me. Not forgotten. Erased. Every picture carefully framed without the empty chair I once hoped would be mine. And as I stared at them, the past came back in sharp flashes. Every time I paid someone's bill, every time I fixed a disaster they caused, every time I stepped back so Marissa could shine. She had always been protected, no matter how reckless she was, while I was expected to clean up behind her like a quiet, unpaid custodian. My parents never cared whether I showed up, only whether my bank account did. Looking at those photos, I finally understood something I'd been too tired, or too loyal, to admit. I wasn't their daughter. I was their wallet. And for the first time in my life, the realization didn't break me, it settled me. I decided I was done. Done funding their mistakes. Done being their backup plan. Done paying for a seat at a table where I was never truly welcome. The moment their demand stopped stinging, I opened my laptop and pulled up the documents for Marissa's car. I'd helped her with paperwork years ago, so I still had copies. I went through every line carefully, my heartbeat steady, almost calm. And there it was in black and white. My name was nowhere on that loan. Not as a cosigner. Not as a guarantor. Not as anything. The car had never been my responsibility. Yet they expected me to bail them out without hesitation, the same way I always had. That was all I needed. I called the bank, gave them the loan number, and informed them the borrower was in default. The woman on the line asked a few questions, and when I confirmed I had no legal connection to the vehicle, her tone shifted into business mode. Repossession procedures will begin immediately, she said. I thanked her and ended the call feeling a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Then I opened the family group chat and typed a single message, no emotion, no explanation, just the truth they'd never expected from me: handle it yourselves. And for the first time in my life, I hit send without fear, guilt, or hesitation. The backlash started faster than I expected. By morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop with angry voicemails from my dad, each one clipped, furious, and full of accusations. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just barked demands, blaming me for creating chaos as if their choices had nothing to do with it. Then Marissa's messages started coming in, panicked, frantic, spiraling. Liana, what did you do? They're taking the car. They're actually taking it. A moment later, an unknown number sent a photo. Her shiny white SUV lifted onto a tow truck, two repo agents strapping it down while Marissa stood on the porch wrapped in a robe, looking like her entire world had collapsed. My parents were in the background, angry and helpless, staring straight at the camera as if I was standing there watching. More messages poured in: rage, blame, disbelief. But I didn't reply to a single one. For the first time in my life, their chaos didn't pull me in. I simply set my phone face down, breathed, and let the silence do the work they had never allowed me to do before. They showed up at my office late in the afternoon, my father pushing through the door first, jaw locked, eyes burning with anger. My mother hovered behind him, wringing her hands, while Marissa stormed in with blotchy cheeks and mascara streaks. The moment the door shut, my dad pointed at me like I was an employee who'd missed a deadline. You're going to fix this. Now. His voice was low, controlled, the kind he used when he expected instant obedience. I stood slowly, smoothing the edge of my desk, keeping my voice steady. There's nothing to fix. It was never my responsibility. That only made him angrier. He stepped closer. We are your family. When we say help, you help. I met his stare evenly. I'm not your bank. Marissa let out a sharp sob. You don't understand. You ruined everything. My car, my wedding week, you turned it all into a disaster. Her voice cracked like she expected me to crumble at the sound. But I didn't move. I didn't apologize. I didn't even soften. I just said the one sentence that had been sitting in my chest since the night of the wedding: you cut me off first. The room went still. My dad opened his mouth as if he had a rebuttal ready, but no words came. My mother's eyes dropped to the floor, and Marissa's crying quieted into stunned silence. For the first time in my life, they realized I wasn't bending. I wasn't breaking. I wasn't carrying them anymore. I wasn't theirs to use. In the days that followed, everything shifted. Marissa was suddenly forced to deal with the consequences she'd been shielded from her whole life, calling the bank herself, scrambling for payment plans, realizing too late how expensive independence truly is. My parents, for the first time, had to face a future where their reliable child wasn't there to cushion every fall. The messages slowed, then softened, then stopped altogether, except one. Late one evening, my mom sent a small, hesitant text that sat alone on my screen. Are you okay? No demands. No guilt. Just a question she had never asked me before. I stared at it a long moment, then typed back a simple truth: yes. I didn't add anything else. I didn't need to, because for the first time, I meant it. I set my phone down, took a breath, and let the weight of years finally slide off my shoulders. Whatever waited ahead, new boundaries, new peace, new life, I was ready. And I walked forward without looking back.